Oh.
All right. Welcome back to our next episode.
What's up,
Things
guys?
about to get interesting.
So,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about art. I'm not laughing at that. Evan last episode said he just played bass. Evan's our resident stand-up comedian. You know, our very own.
Oh, no.
no.
Man, you
I'm
ain't
not a
real, Evan.
comedian.
You ain't real.
No.
But in all
See,
seriousness,
saying
though,
that-
I think it'd be
No, see-
funny. You need to intro us with at least one joke.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. I don't have any material. I don't know.
No, the real joke is that he's not even a Sharks fan. He's wearing a shark shirt.
Hey.
Mm.
What?
The Rona got all your jokes.
Yeah.
All right.
You just don't have any.
Yeah.
I'm not a comedian.
Don't let him lie. But yeah, it's for safety purposes. We don't have him joke right now. Anyway, but yeah, guys.
In all things seriousness, though.
We're gonna talk about art. So, like we said last episode, like I said last episode, I believe that we are all artistic. I believe we were all kind of created to create. That's not really like a new idea. One of my favorite speakers and writers, Erwin McManus, really wrote a bunch of books about that idea, and he's way smarter than I am, and you can get more in detail about that kind of idea and theology in his book, The Artist and Soul. But just the idea that we are from a creative God, and so when we create, if we create out of a spirit of worship, it is literally that. It is worship. So if we cook, if we draw, if we write, if we play music, if we film, if we take pictures, if we're doing it out of a spirit of worship to God and kind of sacrifice to God, I think it qualifies as worship. That'd be my opinion on art, from a Christian perspective, obviously you can create art without that. I just think it has more purpose and meaning when it is from a Christian perspective.
Well, I think art, if I had to put a definition on it, would be expression either of, well, yeah, just personal expression with a sense of mastery. And that really stretches it out to be like, heck, that could be even video games. It could be designing something in like engineering. It can be gardening. It can be a lot of things that can be artistic. But I think that what we want to focus on here is art that uplifts other people, uplifts and like basically glorifies God.
Yeah.
100%. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, that kind of summed it up. Well, so let's move from like just the kind of like narrow term art and move into like a creative. Like, what is like a creative perspective? Like, I think that what me and Sherilyn do in terms of like kind of hosting and setting up and kind of structuring the event, I think that's creative. I think how I MC the night, I think that's creative itself. I think obviously music's creative. But what do you guys say? Is there like, what does a creative perspective mean to you?
I think I got something for this. I think for me, the creative perspective is anything that that like displays kind of what your goal is, if that makes sense. So like if you're on the worship team, your end goal is to see people kind of enjoying that worship experience in whatever form that may be, right? And if you're not accomplishing that, then either one of two things. Either people aren't responding to your creative outlet, or your creative outlet is not being adaptive to what people are looking for, right? Because a big part of creativity is you do thrive off of what other people think of your creative design, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Like if you make a painting, not everybody's going to look at it the same and go, that looks awesome, right? And so that's something that you as the creator kind of feeds off of and goes, okay, well, what can I do on the next one that like maybe catches more people's attention, right? If you're doing worship, it's kind of the same thing. If you're playing songs and people are like those were great, and then you have like the other half of the crowd is going, I wish there was something a little more upbeat. Well, then maybe next time you learn from that and you go, okay, how can I kind of satisfy both audiences?
It almost kind of causes a reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think for me at least, I guess a creative perspective, it would be, I guess, in a sense, force people to think differently about something or think about a topic. So if you take like, if you go to LACMA and you see Andy Warhol's painting of a Campbell soup can, that painting is going to force you at least the bare minimum to think about Campbell soup. Whereas if you saw something by like Rembrandt or Van Gogh, that might, you may say, oh, that's more of a better artist. Different topic. But I think especially for Interlude, what we're trying to get at with this creative perspective is just getting people to think like, oh, someone's cooking can be a way of worship, obviously there's a worship band, which is I guess classic form of worship, but yeah, including art pieces and with that, just getting people to think differently, I guess.
Yeah, that makes me think of a word that is coming to mind right now, which is a curiosity. I think that a lot of times when I'm really into something, like, that makes me think differently. It makes me want to explore the possibilities of what I'm working with in order to make it better. And something like something that inspires me to be curious is something that is also artistic and creative to me.
Yeah, I definitely like think that the way of art of that and like being creatively perspective, it is coming from all different aspects. So it's like with art, like I'm not an artist by any means. So we have people on our team that are very creative in that perspective of just like focusing on that one topic of art. And so like they could bring something that has a more modern or different type of approach than say something that I would probably come up because would be like, okay, put a cross on it, and then maybe like some light behind would be like, okay, that would be like the light, and then that's something totally different than what the art team would do, which is why I leave them to be creative on their own. But definitely like seeing Jake specifically in the kitchen and using a lot of things that I would probably never use in a kitchen and like cooking. So like stuff like with quinoa and stuff like that, like I'm not really exposed to that in my day-to-day life because I'm just very plain like on a comfort food. But it was definitely cool to see like the different creative aspects that Jake had when it came to like cooking specifically, and really like getting exposed to different things is definitely what we were trying to aim in these specific creative areas of Interlude and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if I may interject here, don't let Sherilyn lie to you and say she's not creative. She drew a very nice picture of Donald Duck one time. So,
in case the audience doesn't know or hasn't caught on, Sherilyn and Evan are dating. Lame.
We are lame, but that's okay.
No, I think though you do bring up a good point though, that like we all have unique gifts, right? We're all good at something and we throw our own unique twist on it, even if somebody's done it 1,000 times before we have, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of, again, what makes our group sort of unique in what we do is that we let those people with that unique aspect shine, right? And we let them kind of do what they're going to do and just await the outcome. Like we don't really ever thrive off the idea of like someone coming up with something and being like, hey, could I do this and like experiment with this? And we're like, no. Like we just don't do that. We always are like, yes, you can. And then the worst case comes to worst is like they try it and we go, maybe that's not such a good idea. Let's try something different.
Yeah, like I think Yeah, I think we're really good at letting people try things out. We're also pretty good at like kind of keeping. Our pastor Doyle has a saying, and I'm pretty sure he took it from someone else, but whatever. Keeping the main thing, you know. Um, and our main thing is Jesus. So how can we do that, you know? And it doesn't mean that like everything has to like say Jesus on it or like say Jesus. Like one of my favorite bands of all time is The Devil Wears Prada, and they are Christian guys in a band who make really awesome metalcore music. Sometimes it comes out in the music, sometimes it doesn't. You know, like they had a album called 818, which they said like, oh yeah, it's based off of Romans 8:18. You know, um, then they made a song, they made an album called Transit Blues, which had a song called, which had Daughter on it, which had nothing to do with like kind of Christianity. So it doesn't always have to like just be plain like God, 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 Jesus. It's like it just has to come from like that heart and that spirit, you know, because you can see when it's authentic,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
I think-
definitely. So I think we're not trying to like shove Jesus down your throat. We are trying to do it in a way where it's like you see Jesus in our personality and through us, and working through us in those ways that benefit the ministry, and how Jesus works in our life in our day-to-day basis and what we are passionate about, and really just like showing the love of Christ through our personality and through who we are, and what we love to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like our way of, you know, trying to kind of meet. In my opinion, I think we're trying to meet culture where it's at, and I think culture's at a place where we want, whether we all see it or not or agree with it or not, I think culture, like the culture around it, I think we value realness, you know, like we can see it, and we're not going to get too political because I have no political opinion, but just like in politics, like we value, people our age, we value honesty, we value kind of truth, you know. In our music, you know, and we want people who are authentic with their music, like even if they're coming out with like lies, like we want to like them to at least sound believable, you know. Or at least we want the energy to still be there. I think that kind of Instagram has kind of, I think like the Instagram culture's kind of killed that a little bit. However, I think that people still want authenticity, you know. And I think like the situation we're all in right now, this pandemic, I think that's only going to get more prevalent, you know, because we spent X amount of months on our phones looking at a bunch of like fake people being exposed because they ran out of content, you know. So now we have to be real and honest what we're doing. So I think that like we're trying to, again, just to reiterate, we're trying to meet culture where it's at and be honest and real. You know, we're trying to be hot, honest, open, and transparent.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, you do have to keep in mind like what society as a whole views as like the cultural norm, right? When it comes to creativity, when it comes to art, when it comes to kind of what we display. But at the same time, the goal is to kind of keep that uniqueness, you know? Yeah. So we don't want to just conform to everything and be like, okay, look, we are just like you guys. We want to be relevant, not what's the word? Like
obsolete.
Yeah. We want to be relevant to what everybody else is kind of seeing, hearing, believing, but at the same time introduce them to something else that like is just as believable, that they can hear just as often, and that they can get along with.
Honestly, like I want to be like ahead. Like I'm a big music fan. I know way too much about music. Again, I'm a hip hop head, and when I listen to like Christian hip hop in particular, it's like it's at least 4 years behind stuff right now. And that's not even like in terms of, that's just on the basis of they don't have good engineers. There's only maybe one or two producers of a beat who are decent, and they're just remixing worship songs at times, you know? There's very few Christian artists, you know, who can like meet culture where it's at and maybe even like push past it. And that's just not for that. That's like worship music. That's rock music. That's There's just all kinds of music. Like when you get into like that Christian sphere, I feel like it's at least 4 years behind the curve. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. It ends up becoming almost filtered in a way. And
Yeah.
I don't mean that in the sense of like filtered through like what kind of content they put out. I think it's like filtered through like a societal filter. You know, like you're saying, everything is years behind kind of where it should be.
Yeah.
Right? You look at like churches in a general sense, right? Like the graphics and like the music they play, the way that they do things, like the processes that they use, right? Are so very behind kind of what the modern trends are.
Yeah.
And the hard part again too, I mean, and this goes for like any sort of business or any sort of culturally relevant thing, is it's a constant battle to keep up with the ever changing train of things, right? It's hard to keep up with the most modern music, the most modern art, the trends on, you know, Instagram or whatever it is. You have to keep in mind that like to some degree everybody is going to be somewhat behind on something.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no like perfect filter that everything stays up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things like with Interlude is though we're not trying to be perfect. We're not trying to be like those Instagram churches and stuff like that. We're trying to be real and like be vulnerable. Come in your pajamas if you want to, like type of thing. Like
I come and sweat them.
show up with who you are. Like we're not trying to be fake or anything like that. Like these are some of like the realest people that you'll meet. And we'll have like the pleasure of meeting in your life, and just to give that positive, just like reiterate the positive like outlook, and that's how we want like the outside perspective to be, is like for us to like seem like we are a very positive environment to be around, and like it's just a place where you can like expand your horizons and try something new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this all kind of started from like little kickbacks at my house of just like eating food, and like Michael, who's our worship leader, who we'll get on soon, playing music. I think one of them, I literally had to work the next morning, and so I told everyone, "You all can stay here. I'm going to bed," and you guys stayed there, and I went to bed. Like it's just like that. But yeah, I kind of want to ask you. This is like a totally off-topic question, not off-topic, but we didn't write this down. But like, what are like the things that inspire you guys creatively? Like, who are the people, the things that kind of like inspire you? Like maybe like top 5. You know, we'll go with Evan.
People that inspire me creatively. Well, I don't know. I mean, I love listening to music, and I play the bass. I think I just like practicing it and playing it. Honestly, just trying to do covers of songs, songs that I like, stuff like that. Just try and get better. I know I don't have the time to put into become like a professional bass player or anything, a professional musician and whatnot. But I don't know, just just watching music live, even Sundays and Saturday, just the worship band, just watching them play. It's just an inspiration to me, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. Chase.
Yeah, I think for me, what drives me creatively, I wouldn't say is any one particular person, because like Evan, I'm into music, I'm into kind of being a musician, but I do it more as a hobby than I do as like a profession, right? And that's always kind of my goal, is to be able to turn a hobby into a profession in a sense. Like if that's something that a door opens up and says, here's your opportunity to do it, I'm gonna take it, whether it goes south or not, and just kind of see where it leads, right? And so for me, just content creators in general, whether it be YouTubers, people doing live streams, podcasts, etc., that stuff drives me to kind of create things that are either very similar to what's like out there, but with my unique twist on it, or to try and figure out something that's not out there yet and make content that fits what's missing. So for me, like content creators and things like that, and people that are just creatives in general, are what drive me to be creative.
For sure. Yeah. Sherilyn?
Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily like 5 people that are like super specific. But like there's like people that are around us like that are creative. Like so we have a bunch of people on our art team and that are super creative with paint or like making keychains or decorating sweatshirts and stuff like that, or designing sweatshirts, stuff in that aspect. And that like makes me want to be more creative with what like my like what I wear kind of. But like also like going to like cooking, like Jake every single time he brings something different to the table inspires me to try different things in what I eat, but also in different recipes that I would try. So that expands my horizons. I do listen to a lot of YouTube videos of Gordon Ramsay. Probably not the best example, but like he does everything like so well with cooking, and he makes a lot of different recipes that I would want to try. But also like going to like people like Jake Hardy and some other people that I know where like they're super into woodworking, and growing up as like with my dad, like he was super hands-on, so like I know how to do a lot of like stuff that a lot of guys would do, which isn't very common with girls. And so like learning how to like make like a cornhole set or something like that would be like super fun for me to do, and like just to like be creative in that aspect. That isn't typical for like women to do, you know?
Nice. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mr. Dayton.
I think I'll just go into cooking specifically. Yeah, definitely my first inspiration was probably my mom. And going to college and having cafeteria food was, it, I don't know, it just made me think like this could be better. I could do better. So I ended up binging a lot of Gordon Ramsay stuff, and from that just got a decent foundation of how to cook, as well as kind of a sense of like excellence to strive for when I'm cooking. And then outside of that, there's a lot of YouTube cooks out there that I watch pretty regularly. Babish, BA Test Kitchen, Jamie Oliver. I really enjoy BA Test Kitchen a lot lately because it's a very collaborative thing between people, and I wanted to have that kind of experience with my friends, of just being able to explore this food together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like outside of that, there's a lot of other content creators that just they inspire me because of their commitment to a craft.
Yeah. Kind of going in, I like that phrasing, commitment to a craft. For me, the people who like inspire me are people who have been given, kind of like Chase was saying, doors to open, and I've opened them and I've knocked it out of the park, but I've also like made doors for themselves and opened doors for other people, you know? So people who see an opportunity, take it, create their own opportunity, and give that opportunity back to someone else. I love people who do that. I think specifically, I would say like the Mosaic team in LA, particularly Aaron McManus. I really resonate with his like life story and the fact that he would just do anything to like kind of just serve, you know? He started out like as a janitor for his dad, and then he's now kind of like managing like creative direction and like starting up church campuses for them, you know? So I love people who are just gonna open doors, who are gonna go through doors and like open them themselves. Mike Karanica from The Devil Wears Prada, he's one of my favorite, kind of just, again, he had an opportunity in music, and then he went in a different direction with like writing books, you know? So he like created another opportunity for himself, and then he gives back in just very subtle ways. Matt and Moy definitely, like our pastors, definitely inspire me. Absolutely, just as much as they give back, and there's their wisdom, you know. So Matt and Moy definitely, and the local businesses around that I frequent, like Puerto, you know, Wolf Sprue, those guys all inspire me to just kind of do my own thing and do it with like my whole passion and my whole being, you know, and not waver on it. If I had to say a last person, I'd say Rory Farrell. I'm not gonna promote what he does, but he's on a podcast, and he's just one of those people who stood by what he believed and is like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing, and he like created a new revenue to like do these things. Like basically, like what he does kind of inspired me to do this, you know. Yeah, like he kind of like throws house, he kind of throws parties, you know, and he created a new way to make a living, you know. And so I love people who do stuff like that.
Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention. So my dad, back in his younger days, when he was in a young adults group at his church, he was the bass player for their worship band. You know, obviously, I didn't get to see that, but you know, since I'm the bass player now, I guess it's my turn. Keep the tradition going, I guess.
Hey,
There we go. That's my top 5 inspiration right there.
there you go, the Sioux curse.
All right.
I think that like each person's parents definitely have a big part into inspiring us to do certain things. Like so, like Evan's dad played instruments, so he like got into instruments like bass. And like so like woodworking was something with my dad, and like that's what I got into, and music is something with your dad, Harley. And so you got into music, and Chase, you are super into cars, and so like your dad's really into cars, and then with Jake, your mom, and like cooking. So like each person has things come from like their family, and I definitely think that shapes us into who we are and shapes our interests. Because like music was not a big thing in my family, and so like music isn't like I don't have the same appreciation for music as other people like Harley and Evan do, and like the praise team for Interlude. So it's like different things where like I get to see a different perspective and a different creative perspective with people who are on praise team that I would probably never see in music. So like seeing how we first like basically started was at like the like parties that we would have at Harley's house, where we would just like all get together, and then like Adam and Michael would just like start jamming on the guitar, and I'd like get to see that because that's not something that I grew up with, and a lot of you guys did. So that was like a really cool perspective that was for me to see.
Yeah. My dad got me into metal music.
All right. I think with that, we'll wrap it up with this last question because we're running a little short on time. But I think from everybody, just do like a one-liner of maybe like how we as a whole, or even like as individuals, how we plan on shifting sort of the creative perspective in sort of that new direction that we're planning on going, whether it be kind of keeping with the trend or maybe creating a trend.
You want a one-liner?
I mean, you can do 2, you know. I'll let you do 2 just because you asked.
Honestly, I would probably say just being with people, you know. I think, yeah. If we're going with the analogy of like music, like Sharon was talking about, my favorite musicians are not the most well known, but they're the people who care about their fans, and I want to kind of emulate that. I just want to like be with people and let them know that I appreciate them and I love them. So yeah, just being with people.
For me, I think encouragement and like words of affirmation, and just like sharing what we love to do and kind of bring in people that wouldn't necessarily go to that specific thing, and just like showing why we love it and why we like love to do it, and see how they could possibly do it themselves.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with the sense of like crossing over between gifts and kind of sharing gifts in that sense. Honestly, I think we're set up in a decent direction to keep going with that. Yeah, just keep this rolling.
And for me, just to, I guess, finish it off, I would say creating a Jesus-centered creative perspective rather than a me-centered creative perspective. Because ultimately, everything we do, is in the name of Jesus, rather than in the name of my Instagram follower account or something like that.
It's true.
Yep.
Well said.
Evan, the community.
All right. With that, Harley, you want to outro us?
Yeah, just want to thank you guys for watching this episode. Thanks for sticking with us. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and to go in to kind of just let you guys know what we're doing for the next podcast. We're going to be talking about the actual idea of interlude, having a restful mind and a restful heart. And hopefully we'll get Adam on this one because Adam inspired the amazing quote we have for it. I'm just going to share it right now, and we'll expand on it later. This is a season of rest, not hiding. And with that, pieces. One. Love you guys.